Earlier on in the conversation, you mentioned the ketogenic diet or being in ketosis. And I think you referred to the carnivore diet, something like being the ultimate ketogenic diet. Do you feel like because of the amount of protein you're having, and say you're eating different cuts of meat and a different variety of meat, do you feel like you ever get out of ketosis or you're in 24/7?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think so. But then again, I've never checked. I've never checked my ketones because I don't care. I do this on first principles. This is what we're designed to eat. This is what is biologically appropriate for us to eat, and so I'm just going to eat it and trust that my body knows what to do with it at that point. So if I'm in ketosis or not in ketosis, that's something that my body is going to be in or not because it's supposed to be in it or not. And I don't really worry about that. I'm not trying to micromanage my biochemistry because like you're not going to win that battle, right? Our bodies are insanely complex, and these interactions are insanely complex. And so the best way of managing or micromanaging your body's physiology and biochemistry is just to give it what it needs and stay out of its way, right? And so that's what I do. I would imagine that I'm in ketosis most of the time. I might slip in and out every now and then, but I'm not too worried about it one way or the other, really. Just as long as you're eating what you're supposed to eat. But yeah, it is. You're not eating any carbohydrates. You're not eating any sweeteners or anything like that. And while I fully agree with the keto crowd that this is a good idea to cut out carbs, cut out sugar, cut out alcohol. Those are all very good benefits to our health, biochemically as well as many other reasons. But there are more than they're more than just carbohydrates and alcohol that can cause harm. And so, this is the ultimate keto diet because you're not even eating, well, 50 grams is okay. 20, no grams is okay. You don't want to eat any of that crap. And you also don't want to eat any of the other things too that can also cause harm. So this is a complete elimination diet. You're eliminating out everything that you don't need, everything that's just on the side and that could be causing harm, whether it causes appreciable harm to you or not. There's a potential there. And you're definitely getting rid of everything. And so some people are going to be more sensitive or less sensitive. So maybe, you start with that. You start just eating steak. You do that for a couple months and you say like, how do I do with green beans? I used to like green beans with butter. Try that and be like, actually, that's giving me asthma and my face is getting itchy. And like, oh, that's really weird. I didn't know that. Or it might be like, I don't really notice too much of a difference. Fine. If you want to do that and you want to include that in your life, you go for it. But it is the complete elimination diet because it gets rid of everything you don't need that could be causing harm and more or less harm to different people. And so you at least gives you a strong baseline with which to then build upon if you want to. I don't particularly want to. I don't particularly care. I don't need any of those things. And so, even if they don't, cause a great amount of harm to me, I don't need them. I don't want them. And so, I don't use them, and so, but sometimes like some little spices or things like that will mix in and I will actually notice it in 20, 30 minutes. Like again, my face will get itchy, my nose will get runny. I'll have a bit of a tickle, like tightening in my chest, like, asthma, or maybe something gets in and, I get muscle aches and joint pains and my back hurts for a few days. I was like, what the hell is that about? And it's like, oh, okay, well that, I had some salami and I had some other things and had some things mixed in it and sort of did that 3 days in a row. And like, okay, now it's sort of building up. So, I do notice these things. It's much more subtle. I mean, I feel 1,000 times better than I ever felt in my entire life, which is why I can now feel those subtle changes. Whereas if we're just eating, nonsense every day, those subtle changes, they're just background noise. You're not gonna see it. You're not gonna notice it. But because I'm just way up here all the time, I'm not just this, middling, sort of always feeling crappy and just maybe up and down from that baseline level of garbage that I feel. I feel amazing all the time. Just a little detraction from that is, still 900 times better than I ever felt throughout the course of my life, but it's worse than I feel now. So I was like, I'm not interested.
Well, the interesting thing I think of as you say that is it's obvious how sensitive you've become eating, such a narrow range of foods. Have you ever thought about the fact maybe 20, 30 years down the road, you've been doing this diet and you become super sensitive and then there's a little bit of parsley in meat you're eating or something and it throws you off for a week. Like, are you, and this ties back to our hormesis that we were talking about before, the fact that you would never want to, I guess, some people could argue putting some plant toxins in their body could be a good thing so they don't weaken themselves over time and become super sensitive. But is that something that ever crosses your mind or you worry about?
So are you worried about not doing heroin because in the future, if you get exposed to heroin, you might overdose on heroin?
No, but
So
heroin isn't in my face 24/7. If you're at a restaurant
Yeah.
and you know what I mean, like this stuff is everywhere. This is the world we live in.
But it's the same. It's the same principle. It's the same principle, right? So it goes back to hormesis, but really the difference between hormesis and tolerance, right? Because I would have built up a tolerance to all these things, but do I want that tolerance? Does that benefit me more than the benefits I get from just not eating it at all? I don't think so. So I'm probably as intolerant to those things now as I'm ever going to get. I don't think that 30 years from now I'm going to be any worse. It's just like, I haven't drank in 2 years either, and so, in 5 years, am I going to get, is that going to hit me more than it would just now? It'd probably be about the same. Probably my tolerance for alcohol has gone away completely. And I just have whatever my innate sort of ability to break that stuff down and tolerate it is. I think that's probably the same for parsley as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, people do get more sensitive to these things. I think that's a combination of things. I think that's losing that tolerance, certainly. But also, I think now you recognizing what this is doing to you because you can see that contrast. Whereas before, when you're eating a lot of different plants, and a lot of different plants, and a lot of sugars and processed garbage and coffee and tea and stimulants and all these sorts of things, you're throwing in a lot of chemicals in your body. You have this massive chemical experiment in your body, and so you don't really see all the subtle differences where you add in some arugula and that sort of makes something different. But in the background of all this, this tsunami of things that you're doing to your body, I mean, you're not going to notice it. So right now you can be more, it's more apparent, right? Because you don't have anything wrong in the system. You've got a Swiss watch. It's working great. You drop one piece of sand in there, all of a sudden things start sparking and cracking and doing weird things. If you dump, a whole handful of salt in that, it's just going to stop. So adding in a couple more grains, well, what does that do? So now you have a clean running watch, and you throw in a couple of grains of sand. Yes, you are going to see a difference, and it's going to have more of an effect on you now than it will if you have all this stuff in you. And that tolerance. So I think it's both. I think you're going to notice it more, and you will be more tolerant. You will be more intolerant to it, and I think that combination makes it a much more noticeable effect. But I think that for me, that's worth it. Down the road, if I'm starving and I'm out somewhere and I have to eat carrots or an apple or something like that, I can survive on that. It's not going to kill me, but I might feel a bit crummy for a while, but if I have to subsist on that for a while, my body will build a tolerance to it and will be able to handle those toxins a bit better. And I'll be able to go back to my old style of eating, which is, eating meat, but also supplementing that with, carbs and vegetables and things like that. And if I have to do that because I just don't have the access to meat and I can't survive, well, then you have to, I think that is a huge survival advantage. I think that's probably one of the reasons why humans have been so successful in different areas and all over the globe, is because in times of famine and stress, we have been able to survive. Since the megafauna died out, since the mastodons and woolly mammoths and things like that, since they died off, we've had to go to different means of food, and not all areas have had, 100 million wild buffalo just roaming around, for them to go after. And so they've had to go to other means. And I think that's definitely a survival advantage. But I don't think that means that that's optimal for us to do all the time outside of that survival state. So, I'm not too worried about it. I think I'm probably as intolerant to it as I'm ever going to get. And unless I'm, starving to death, I don't plan on interacting with plants much anyway, apart from, just visiting them occasionally on walks. And, so I don't think it's too big of an issue for me.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
No animal eats the variety of plants that we do, and I think that that's causing and driving most of the modern non-communicable chronic diseases that we face these days. It is the complete elimination diet because it gets rid of everything you